Alright, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to talk about functions. Specifically, what is a function? A function is an enclosed group of statements that perform an operation, so that do something for us, right? So with functions, we can do a lot of things. The first thing we can do, we can pass in parameters or arguments, which we can then use those to do things in our code, in this block of code, and then we can return something back once we have processed all of those statements. We've looked at functions all along. You may not have realized that, but you already know what functions are. At least you've seen them, all right? Well, let's go ahead then and start looking at them in more detail. All right, so I have my Xcode open here, and I went ahead and created a playground project. So I want you to do the same and name it functions. So our playground project is called functions. And remember, it's a playground, not an iOS app project. All right, so in order for us to create a function, this block of code where we can put statements, we use this notation here. So you say func, as you can see, there it is, just say enter, and then we need to add a name over this function. Let's call this show my info. Once we have the name, we have to open and close parentheses. And then we have our braces there. So this here, this statement here tells Xcode that we are creating a function, and this function is called show my info. All right. And of course we have our braces here. This is our function body, which means this is where we put all of our statements here. Let's say for now, we just want to go ahead and say print hello from the function. Save this. Okay. Well, notice that if I go ahead here, let's try something. Let's go ahead here and say print and say outside. Notice right there we have outside showing. And here we also did the same. We have a print hello from the function, but yet nothing is showing here. So hello from the function is not showing. The reason why is because this print outside, this print here, which is outside of our method, is automatically called, right? But whenever we have our function, in order for us to see the things, the statements that we have written inside, we need to call it. Otherwise, it will never show. All right, so here at the bottom, we can say show. There it is, show my info. Just say enter, and you should see hello from function. So you can infer right away that you need to call functions. And you may ask yourself, well, why is it that then I need to create a function if I can always just create a print hello or do whatever I need outside? Well, the reason why, and this will become more apparent later once we start talking about classes, is because then we don't have to repeat the same code. Let's say if we wanted to show this show my info information, this print here, 25 times, in different circumstances, we can now just go ahead and call it, not having to create the same statement. That's one of the reasons why functions are handy. And of course, we'll talk more later about other advantages of functions when we talk about classes. The great thing about function is that everything that is inside our braces here is considered a block, its own entity, right? So here we can even create variables. We can go ahead and say let, for instance, my name, let's go ahead and say of type string is equal to Paulo. And then we can also say let my age, let's give it type int, is equal to 29. Yes, folks, I am 29 years old. All right. Now, if we go ahead and comment this out, notice again, nothing will show because we need to call it. Okay, so let's go back like this. Now here inside, of course, you've done many times, we can go ahead and display that information, right? You can say my name is, let's go up and my name, and I am my age years old, and save. And you see my name is Paulo and I am 29 years old. That's great. So this is how you create a function. Now, the other thing we can do with functions is we can pass in arguments or parameters that we want to use inside of our body here, right? Say we want to pass in a string, we will start by typing in the name or the name of the variable that we are passing in. So say name in this case, right? And then of type string. So what are we saying here? We're saying this show info here accept a name of type string. So that means we can pass any string here and then we can use inside here. So So what we can do then inside of our method here, instead of saying let my name string equal Paulo, let's make this more dynamic and use whatever we pass in inside here and then fetch that. So here we can go ahead and just say is equal to name. Which name? Well, this string name that we're passing here. As you can see right away, we have an error here. If you click here, it says missing argument for parameter number 1 in call. Because here we have said our contract is that our showMyInfo method needs to have a parameter, an argument here passed. So we need to pass something. Let's say Ron, for instance. Now notice what happens. Now it says my name is Ron and I am 29 years old. This Ron, that's what we are passing inside of our showMyInfo. And then we are taking whatever we're passing in as a variable, internal variable, and then we're displaying here. Now you can see as we pass arguments inside of our methods, then we have a very flexible methods because now we can pass in any name here. We can say here Bob, and my name is Bob. We can say here Melissa, and it says Melissa. You can say here anything you want. You can even say cat. And save, my name is Kat, and I am 29 years old. And we can pass in as many parameters as we need. We separate those by putting comma. So the next one, let's say we want to pass in the age. We can just go ahead and say age of type, again, colons, right? And we say int, because we want to the age we want to pass has to be an integer. So now we can just go say copy this. And instead of doing all of this here, we just say equal and pass in the age. So we notice right away we have an issue here. So if you click on it, so it says cannot convert a value of type string to expected argument type string age int. All right. So what's saying here is that, well, we've now changed the signature, which means the contract we have here. Now we have 2 arguments, 2 parameters here. And here we're just passing 1. So what we need to do, we have to go say comma. And there's something very interesting here. You would think that we could just go ahead and say, let's say 23, and this should work. But we're going to have an error here. The reason being is because in Swift, if you have a function that has more than 1 parameter here, in this case, we have 2, any argument after the first one has to be labeled, meaning if you click here, you'll notice what's going to happen here. Fix insert age. So I have to click insert age, get enter. This is the label. We have to label it. We have to say age, colon, whatever we are going to insert. That's one important piece of information here. So now this will work. As you can see here, my name is Kat. I am 23 years old. Okay. And we can go ahead and put a few more. Let's say we want to put a boolean there. Is married, type of bool. There it is, right? Now let's go ahead and say here, let status. I'm going to call marriage status. In this case, let's just pass in our is married. Okay, so now what we need to do, again, we have a problem here. So that means we can go ahead here and put comma, is married. We're going to say true. Let's change name here to Paulo, age 29, and is married is true. And now here, of course, we need to add the is marriage variable here. And we can say and marriage status is, we pass in our variable there, married status. And we should see here, let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. And you can see it says, my name is Paulo and I'm 29 years old and marriage status is, let's click on that. It says here, marriage status is true. All right. So as you can see here, you can go ahead and put as many arguments as you wish. Great. So you've learned how to create functions. You've learned how to pass in arguments in your functions, different types, and so forth. So as you can see here, we have string type, we have int, we even have a Boolean type. Okay. And you've also learned how to create certain logic inside of your body here. In this case, it's just printing our values, which we are receiving in this case from our arguments. So as you can see, I can call this same method here. Let's show my info. I can put different names. Let's say Erica, something. And age, I can say 24, is married, I can say false. And guess what? Look what's going to happen. If we click here, let's click at this bullseye there. As you can see, it says my name is Erica and I'm 24 years old and marriage status is false. I'm hoping you can start seeing the power of functions here. So go ahead and play around again with this concept here of functions and create your own functions. Make sure you pass in arguments, different kind of arguments, and just play around with this concept again. And if you have any questions, as usual, if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to ask them in the discussion forums, all right? So I'll see you in the next video.